Marcia wants to know in this email, Chuck, that she has a deed where neither the tenants in common nor joint tenancy
Tenancy.
tenancy are listed on the actual deed. And she's wondering, does that mean the deed is invalid? So,
No, it means you fall back to the default, which is tenants in common.
and explain what tenants in common is for us laymen.
Tenants in common. Let's say that you and I, Bob, we own a piece of property together as tenants in common. If I die, my share goes to my heirs. Okay. And so my heirs would own my half and you would own your half.
Okay,
That's the
so
difference from, say, a joint tenancy with survivorship, where if I were to die, you would get my share.
And of course, folks, this is an important distinction to know when you buy a house because you'll be asked by Chuck or any closing attorney that you're working with as to how you want the deed titled. Am I correct on that, Chuck?
That is correct. I'll always ask. Now, typically, husbands, wives always wanted joint tenants with right of survivorship, which means they own the property 50-50, and if one of them passes, the other owns it 100% automatically at the time of death. Okay.
Mhm.
But you don't have to be married. You and I could own a piece of property in joint tenancy with right of survivorship, uh, or we could be tenants in common. But the default is if the deed doesn't say it's a tenants in common.
Doesn't say tenants in common. All right, that solves that problem. But folks, please think about this. If at a closing table, ask your closing attorney, and also consider if you don't have, get a will because it would simplify so many things for so many people.
One thing I'd like to throw in there is
Please,
if you're thinking about not having it with right of survivorship, discuss that before closing. We get plenty of scenarios where newly married people are coming from old relationships. Maybe she's bringing a settlement from a divorce and he's bringing, something from an inheritance, and they don't really want to make it survivorship. That's kind of the fallback on most of the lenders saying, "Oh, hey, JWROS." But if you don't want to have the right of survivorship, talk about it ahead of time, because the worst case scenario is husband doesn't want it, wife does, and oh, hey, it just became an issue in the middle of a closing.
and that holds
Don't want to
everything.
have that happen.
Got it. Incidentally, if you're thinking about selling your home, we have a free no obligation book that has hundreds of useful tips. If you want a copy, simply send an email to me, bob@WeSellLouisville.com, and put selling tips in the subject line, and I'll send that right out to you.